Our guest today is Rickard Jean-Noel, and he has a rich history of providing social and emotional support services to diverse communities throughout the greater New York City area. He is a Fordham trained social worker, and he has extensive experience in this field. He's been a clinical director at New York City Homeless Shelter, and he worked with Home Base and their homelessness prevention program. And he's worked with people suffering with anxiety, depression, substance abuse disorders, PTSD, and the impact of various types of abuse. He's also keenly interested in helping those dealing with the intersectional impacts of marginalization, things such as systematic racism, classism, xenophobia, genderism, and homophobia, as well as other forms of othering. Rickard is the founder of the Real World Ministries, which is a charity that assists those living in poverty within the 5 boroughs of New York City. They provide food, clothing, and shelter assistance to thousands in the New York area. Now, for those efforts, Rickard was awarded the Kings of Kings Award from the Schneps Media Group in 2020. Rickard was recognized by the Making the Impossible Possible organization and was added to their Hall of Fame. And that inspired him to take his humanitarian work, his commitment to others, to Haiti, where through the Real Word Ministries participated in a variety of humanitarian efforts, including things like providing basic aid, food and clothing, but also helping with rebuilding homes, basic infrastructure, and assisting around summer camps for the youth. Rickard is also an ordained minister of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and mentors a youth ministry in Brooklyn. I'm so excited to interview this incredible person. Welcome to the show, Rick.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Perfect. Let's dive in. First question, what is a favorite song or movie, either now or all time?
One of my favorite movies, I would say, would be Benjamin Button. The reason why I would say Benjamin Button is because within the movie, there's a very inspiring quote, which states that life is understood backwards, but is to be lived forward. And oftentimes we only learn from our mistakes. And it's after we get the things wrong that we really understand, but we have to live through the mistakes in order to learn the mistakes. And that's why in the movie, the guy is living backwards, so he's able to correct them as he goes, but not everyone has that luxury.
It reminds me of that question. Would you want to go back and start again from 20, knowing what you know? Would you do it? And it's, yeah, knowing what I know, absolutely. Let's talk about a favorite moment from your childhood.
I could say one of the favorite moments of my childhood is when my brother and I, when our father bought us bikes, it liberated us in the sense that we were able to travel far distances and go on adventures together from early morning to the sunset. And I remember my dad be waiting in the middle of the street for us to come back home because back then we didn't really have cell phones. He just had to trust that we will be back in time. And so that was always fun, like riding
I
around.
know kids who've grown up since 2010, they have no idea what it's like to be truly free
Yeah.
because your parents can't reach you. So you're on your own. So when you think back to that time of riding around with your brother, what was a favorite adventure that you guys would have on your
Mm.
bicycle?
We would play Goonies. Like you remember that old school movie, The Goonies, when the kids went on the adventure to find the treasure and all of that. So that's
Yeah.
what we would do. But we grew up in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and then we moved to Canarsie. So one of the things we would do is ride from our new neighborhood to our old neighborhood, which was like 30 minutes to an hour ride. So
Wow.
we would do that. And we would just go to the old neighborhood and ride around, see how things are, see what changes took place, see how everything is. And it was fun. Another memory was just going to church. Our church was this big building, like an old armory, which then became a church that was built by the Methodist or the Protestant or Baptist church, one of those two. But it was a huge church the size of a castle. And as a kid, we grew up in this castle and we used to just go through the building. Half of it was abandoned. They eventually condemned the building because we couldn't afford to keep it up. But we used to
Okay.
travel all through the building and have adventures. We used to always find ways to entertain ourselves as children.
Did your parents know that two of you were riding 30 to 60 minutes away?
No. Usually it'll be on a Sunday. My mom would be cooking food for the most part, and my dad, those were the times when he enjoyed his freedoms. So we would all just be about our own business, more or less.
Okay. I love it. Man, that's cool. So now is when we'll talk about accomplishment. And I asked this question in two parts. First, an accomplishment that means the most to you personally. And then an accomplishment that, of all the things you've done, it's the one that most often gets the wow from others. So let's start with that first.
Mhm.
Which accomplishment is the one that means the most to you personally, Rick?
I would say being able to have a child and be able to provide and still be there for them, even after all that has happened. So I was married about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And
Mhm.
during the global pandemic, we separated. And then that eventually led to her filing for divorce. And I became a single father, a full-time dad. And during that time, I was in grad school, in my final year of grad school with mounting debts. And it was a do or die situation, as in like I either graduate and be able to elevate and maybe obtain new employment with additional income so I could provide for myself and my daughter, or I could fall victim to the circumstances, depression and everything else and be a failure. And so that was a difficult situation to deal with, going through the global pandemic, dealing with a child at the time. My child was 3 years old and dealing with all of that stress and all of the things that came along with it. And after graduating, I was able to obtain new employment to level up my company. I was able to do a lot of things in the community that ended up in the newspapers that I ended up getting awarded for during that global pandemic when everyone was hiding in their homes. We went to Harlem, we went to the South Bronx and low income neighborhoods and fed hundreds of people regularly. So we turned that pain into passion. And even when going through all of that, it was still a lot of people that, supported me. I was still able to preach. I had a sermon called Leading While Bleeding as you're
Oh,
going through the most difficult times in your life, but there's still people that's depending on you to lead. Because I am in a lot of leadership positions, clinical director of social services, executive director of my own company, youth minister, youth leader in my church, building director of my church. So all these things that we had to just deal with, and we had all the excuses to quit. We pushed forward and persevered. So all the trophies and awards, those things, they don't really mean much. It's the ability to still continue to go and overcome adversity. So that's what I'm proud of.
leading while bleeding. I love that title. Oftentimes, when we see leaders, we're seeing them in curated situation. They're at a podium, they're in action as leaders, and while they're leading, you don't get to see all that they're dealing with. I'll tell you, when you first started, I thought about how common that is for women more so than men to have to make that choice between schooling. It's like that prize gets you the life that's going to make a difference for you and your child. And yet the circumstances make it hard to do that. But that's what's so important to do. And it takes a lot to take on that commitment and then to accomplish it. So, one, I just acknowledge you for your determination and for choosing to be a single dad
Well,
while not that, yeah, seriously, like choosing to be a single dad and choosing to be a single dad who doesn't sacrifice his calling. And that's exactly why I interview brothers like yourself, because these are not the stories we get to hear on a daily basis in the media, but these are the everyday stories of brothers choosing love and choosing life and choosing success. So, what is it like to be a single father today? Is there anything that you've noticed in that transition from being a married father to being a single father about either how society responds to you or hurdles that most people wouldn't know are there for single fathers?
yeah, there's a lot. Childcare. I get a lot of support from my two sisters and my mom, but at the end of the day, it's my child. I got to get her ready for school every morning. Got to put her to bed every night, do homework with her, make sure she's okay, get her her thing in order, set her up for school, take her to doctor's appointments, even health insurance, things like that. And having a daughter makes it a little bit more complicated. They gotta use the bathroom. Hope
Oh,
to find
true.
you gotta hope there's a family bathroom or if there's someone around that's like a female, you can let them take her to the bathroom or you wait outside the door and you hope that she could take care of everything on her own. So it's complicated. Like now she's a little older, so it's easier now with the bathrooms. When she was younger, it was a little bit more complicated. When it comes to dating, that's another interesting one. You don't want just any female around your daughter influencing them in a negative way. And then there's the women that might see your life at its current place and they think, oh yeah, I would love to be part of that. So you gotta watch out for that too. And then there's the women that don't want to date men with children at all. You deal with that too.
Mm-hmm.
Re-entering dating pool at 35. I'm not too old, but still at 30, the women around this age that's still single, they have a lot of issues to be transparent. So it's not easy neither. And just arranging your schedule to make time for your kid and to have a social life, it has its challenges. Society looks at you oftentimes like you're the one that must have made the mistake within the relationship to end up here. You sometimes
Mm-hmm.
deal with that stigma. Who knows what else people think in their minds? So I don't try not to focus upon that. But other than that, it's just one day at a time. You take accountability for the things you're able to, and then you just do your best.
I appreciate you bringing up the restroom issue because as a female, when I go in the restroom and I see a mother, he may bring a young son in, and we're just all, yeah, that happens. But it's not the same situation to bring a little girl into the guys'
Mhm.
restroom. So just thank you for bringing up some of the little logistics people don't think about, but also with the dating, because I don't know if this, because I'm a woman, I'm used to hearing the stories about single mom and the difficulties of dating, but we don't have a concern about the difficulties for a single father dating and the juggling of all of it. And in particular, who are you bringing around? Who is this woman and what's the influence she's going to have? It might seem a little mundane to you, but it's the kind of thing that a lot of us don't think about. So thank you for that. What about the accomplishment that when people hear it, it's the one that most likely has them go, oh, really?
Mm. A couple, I guess, I was the three graduating from Fordham with a master's degree with a clinical concentration in social work and mental health. That one impresses people. They don't expect me the way I look because I'm still myself, man. I don't try to say a lot of people who still graduate from a school like that or with those credentials, they'll act bougie, the bourgeoisie,
Yeah.
better than everybody else. No, I'm still the same. I wear a white tee. I hang out outside. I still be around the same people. I don't really try to act outside myself. When I tell people I founded two companies, 9 times out of 10, they don't believe me at first. And then when I
Mm.
say Google it, and then they'll see it and they're like, oh, this is you? And I'm like, yeah. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, I see. Also when I tell people I'm an ordained minister, that seems hard for a lot of people to believe too. And then I'll show them my YouTube channel, or if they come to my house, I'll show them my certificates of ordination. Wow, I don't think so. And lately, Haiti, when I tell a lot of people I went to Haiti, they don't believe it until they see it for themselves. They're like, man, you wasn't scared? You at the place where they killed the president? Like, yeah, that's what it is. Those are the highlights. Most of the time, I tell people they seem shocked.
Mhm. I can hear that it has an impact on you to be first doubted and then to have to prove it so often.
Yeah,
What is, yeah. Can you share a little bit about that? What's that like for you?
I try not to speak about my accomplishments to the average person unless they ask, only because I might look average, but there's nothing simple about me.
Mhm.
Like when I tell people I have a TV show, a lot of people are like, you don't got a TV show, stop lying. I'm like, okay. Then they were like, all right. And then when I post, look, we're on TV. Wow, you really got a TV show. And first comes the doubt, then comes the hate. Is they rather not say congratulations. They probably like, nah, that's not true. Like when I went to Haiti, there's this guy that came to my house Friday and he was like, yo, man, you went to Haiti? I'm like, bro, I know you saw me go to Haiti. You watch my Instagram story every day. Like, I know he's playing there. And he's, yeah, man. I was like, wow, wow. At first I was like, he's not going. He's not going. He's lying. He's lying. Because we had a whole fundraiser. We had a banquet. Over 200 people came, but a lot of people didn't come. A lot of people didn't support. And according to this guy, a lot of people thought I was lying. I'm like, why would you think I'm lying about something like this? It's easily fact checked. If I'm lying, you would eventually saw it. But even when they saw it with their own two eyes, they still denied it. And then when I came back from Haiti and I came back safely, some people were happy, like congratulating me. But there was some people that looked at me like, oh, this, who do he think he is? I have this four-part sermon based on Matthew 24, where Christ is speaking and he's saying that he listen to what they say, but what they practice do not, because they do not practice what they preach. And I called out a lot of the other elders of the church and the pastors of the church, and I'm like, a lot of you guys preach a good game, but when it comes to putting it into practice, a lot of you do not do it. You carry on this false perception that like you're bigger than the average person or you're more connected to God than the average person. And you wear these expensive suits and your family is the first family and you guys are praised and whatnot. You guys sit at these special tables and get extra portions of food, but what exactly are you really doing? Like even in the church, outside, in your homes, like you guys just show up one day out the week and you expect everybody to kiss your behinds. And I'm like, you're really not doing much. And I know that your biggest conflict with me is that I'm doing too much. You know, it's almost like when Christ came and he called them all out, he's, yo, what are y'all really doing? And then it was like, oh, you're doing too much. And you know how that ends, right?
Yep. 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 It's a funny thing about our culture because we tout this rugged individualism and we want people to succeed and be super successful. And that is true. But there's also this pull for the status quo. We settle into this middling level of productivity, this middling level of getting it done. And then when someone shows up who says, no, you know what? We can do a lot more. Hey, we can do this. No, I'm down. I can run this down. Let's start this. It shakes things up and it makes people uncomfortable because you're now showing the gap between what is being done by some and what's possible to be done. And that makes people uncomfortable. It makes people uncomfortable to have to confront that gap in action. So, yeah, you're going to be haters. Let's talk about words. What is a favorite quote, saying, metaphor, or book?
Socrates, the only thing I know is that I know nothing.
Sure. And why does that one appeal to you?
I feel like I'm a seeker of knowledge and wisdom and understanding. When it comes to literature, I read a lot. Even when it comes to education, I could say I'm highly educated, even though I don't like to use the term, but I am highly educated. But I'm still a student. I wouldn't mind sitting on the floor with a bunch of kids listening to a story. When I went to Haiti and they were talking to me, even though I speak the language I've spoken my whole entire life, but there'll be words or things that they would say and I wouldn't understand. I'll explain to me more so I could understand better. And they would actually take their time to explain it. When I say experiences, when I went to Haiti, like I really experienced it. Like I would hit, I would sit outside with my cousin on the porch or on steps in front of the house, and we would just watch people walk by every day. It's almost like when you hug the block back in Brooklyn, when you sit outside all day. I don't think it was the same, a third world country. Going to the bars, going to the streets where the people dance in the middle of the streets, going into the marketplaces, going into the mountains and seeing how the people live in the mountains, seeing how the people live in the city, seeing how the people live in different parts of the country. And I do that in almost every country I go to. I try my best to work and to be amongst the people. And oftentimes people ask, are you not scared? And I'm like, let my presence be my protection. If I could walk in my purpose, then God is really with me if I believe the things that I'm preaching. And so when I say to learn, I feel like we could learn from other people. So if you could meet these people and ask them about these things, whether it be cultural differences or things on history or things that they lived, you could really start to understand the world around you. Even when it came to preaching, I didn't really have a mentor to sit me down and go through the Bible with me. I used to just sit down and really meditate and speak to God and apply the Holy Spirit and really put myself there. And I was able to visualize it and then preach it out and then put that on a recording and then share it on social media. And that's really how it went viral to building up this following and being able to even create these companies and everything that I've been able to create just from the word. So I've placed a lot of emphasis on the word and on learning and understanding words in the world around us.
Now, I know you were, for all intents and purposes, raised your entire life here in the States. Now, your family, though, originally from Haiti?
Yeah, myself included. He was born,
Okay.
my dad is from a place called Milo and Okap, Cape Haitian, and my mom is from Limbe and Okap, Cape Haitian. That's in the north of Haiti.
You mentioned you grew up speaking the language, so at home, and then you go there and there are words that you'll have them explain. But what is it like for you as a Haitian American when you go back to Haiti?
I went back to Haiti. That was me going back after 33 years. I left at the age of 2, so a lot of things had happened. I went through elementary school, high school, junior high, college, university, all in America. And I went through marriage, children, divorce, and then I returned back home after all of that. And first time I was there, I met family that I've never met before. I grew up particularly with my mother's side of the family, so I didn't see my father's side up until I went to Haiti after all those years. And
Mm.
it's almost like you're reading a book and half the book of your life is missing until you reach that point in your life where you can understand that half of the book of your life. And
Mm.
there's this term that they call people in Haiti, diaspora or diaspora or diaspora. It's almost like diaspora, like someone that has left the continent and went to a different place. So
Mhm.
traveled the diaspora. So
Yeah.
they say it more so as like, I wouldn't say like an insult, but like a joke. Like they joking on you like that, like diaspora, like you left and came back. But at the same time, they want to take advantage of you because they know that you left, you went to someplace foreign, you was able to make something of yourself. So most likely you came back with money. So there'll be people that'll come to the house and they'll just stare at you and they'll expect you to give them money. There'll be women coming from all over and they don't
Mhm.
leave until you give them money. So it's like those are the cultural things that you deal with when they know that you're not from there. Everyone is trying to not, I wouldn't say get over on you, but in a sense, they're in survival mode because the
Yeah.
economy is so bad. $1 is like 130, 537 of their dollars. So they're looking for that come up. They're looking for someone to help alleviate the stress of debt and bills on them. But at the same time, they live with less stress than us because they live an easier lifestyle. They stay younger. They're not stressed out as us too.
Mm.
Overall, I feel like that was what it was. I would say overall, people showed me love and kindness. People were happy to see me, especially those that I helped. There was not really any aggression or ill will or ill favor toward me. And for the most part, I was comfortable.
Fantastic. I do have one last question around that. While you were there and you got to hang out with your dad's side of the family, was there anything about you, your personality, your skill set, some innate talent that when you were there, you went, oh, this is where that comes from? I'm just curious.
I would say the most visible is these guys with the ladies. Like, these guys, it didn't stop. I could say three things. I would say respect comes from either admiration or fear. And I would say my father's side of the family, there's people that admire them, there's people that fear them. And I was able to see that, particularly with my uncle and with my father. Because, okay, let me just stick with the first one. The way that they moved
Okay.
around Haiti and the way people treated them and reacted to them is almost like people bowed down to him in a sense. Everyone referred to my dad as boss. What's up, boss? Hey, boss, my boss. But it's almost because he was supporting almost all of them. They all depended on him in that sense. With my uncle, it's almost like he benefited from my father, so people benefit from him. But at the same time, he was telling me when he was younger, he was like more so overly aggressive, and that caused people to fear him. But since he's older now, he doesn't behave in the same manner. But then I could see how they are with women. Like these guys are like ladies, man. Like they just do whatever in the world serenade the women. I was just like, yo, and I was like, well, what's wrong with you guys? And it was like, yo, this is what we do. They were putting me on to like the mannerisms of women and how to engage with them, but they do it from a very primal instinct. Say, for example, a woman is walking by, they'll just stare at the woman, stare at the woman, stare at the woman, and it'll be in an aggressive way. And the woman be like, "What do you want?" And they'll be like, "You stole from me." And the girl like, "What did I steal?" It's like, "Oh, you see, you in big trouble because you stole something from me and you don't even know what you stole." And the girl be like, "What did I steal?" And my uncle, he's like poetic, like a weird kind of poetic. He would be like, "Listen, I've been having this pain in my heart, and it's been there for the longest, ever since someone stole my heart, and I've been trying to heal this. Only person that could take this pain away is you. Will you take this pain away from me?" What are you talking about? And I'll see him speak to people like this, and I'm like, "Man, what's wrong with this guy?"
What I hear is smooth. The smooth. They got game.
Yeah, but it's like, and I'm looking at him like, and then when the girl walks away, I'm like, "Yo, did you really say all that?" It's a lie. They're gonna lie to us, so you might as well lie to. They all lying. They all lying. So I'm gonna lie too. I'm like, wow.
They actually sound like a cool group to hang out with. A lot of
Yeah,
fun.
deals with everything, everything. Like, I had a great time. I'm not gonna lie, I had a great time with them. Like, it's a different. They behave different when the women are not around. Meaning that my mom, my aunt, my female cousins weren't around. It was just us men together. So it was like they were able to be themselves as men in a country with very little laws, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it was like, nigga, look at the guy, run around with guns, looking for girls and food. Like that's looking for pleasantries. That's what they call it. Plaisir. Go to the beach, go this place, go that place. It's the islands. As long as there's money in their pocket, they just trying to enjoy the rest of the day. They're not trying to really do much.
I hear you. I just came back from Hawaii, and it's been a long time since I was on an island. And that whole thing about the pursuit of pleasantries. And there is something about an island life that lends to that. I appreciate you sharing a little bit of the color and the flavor of your stay. So, what is a moment, conversation, or event that either changed the trajectory of your life or had a significant impact on your life?
I mentioned one, which was the COVID-19 global pandemic. That
Mhm.
changed my life a lot. During that time when it first started, I was a housing specialist at a homeless shelter working with the Department of Homeless Services with the vouchers. And that's around the time when I was married. My daughter was maybe 2, and I was still going through a lot of transitions in life when I was in school. And by the time we came out the pandemic, I graduated school. I was separated from my ex-wife. All this other stuff was going on. I'll say another one would be 2015. That's when I was provided with my first platform and able to preach at a church. And then from there, my first sermon was called The Reincarnation of Rickard Jean-Noel. And my second sermon was called Let He Use Without Sin. I was 16. And by my third one, empowered by the Holy Spirit, it went viral. I think in the first week, 60,000 people watched it on Facebook.
Wow.
And then from there, and that's when people started inviting me to churches to preach. And that's when I started getting all these titles. And then I started getting more notoriety from different people and from different things. And that's where the acknowledgement came from as well. And with the same energy from the people that follow me online, that's when I created the show, the podcast, which became a television show and everything else. So that made a big change in my life too. I would say also back in elementary school and junior high, like I had 2 male teachers. One was called Mr. Peters, my third grade teacher, told me that men could be successful and could help others as well to learn and to be able to teach what they have learned in order to empower those that will come after them. And then I had Mr. Grant in the 6th grade, which was a black male teacher, the first black male teacher I've ever had. Mr. Peters was like Indian, so he was brown, but Mr. Grant was black, like a black man. He was tall, black, dark-skinned guy with a mustache. And whenever we got out of hand, he would come and pinch her. And then I'm like, when they pinch her, I'm gonna tell my dad. And my dad came, and my dad was like, yes, if he's acting up, pinch him good. And I remember he used to always be that father figure, and he was like, "Yo, I pinch out because when I was young, I was hanging out in the streets. I got shot in the butt, and I don't want you
Mhm.
guys to go through the same thing." It was until he went to the military and he changed his life, and he became a teacher. He was a homeowner. He had a house in Park Slope, and then he moved to Las Vegas. So he did very good for himself as a
Mm.
black man, and so he was always a good motivation for us too, growing up as well. Seeing a successful black man, knowing that we could do it too, not just someone that played basketball or football, but someone that we would see every day that did good too.
Yeah.
And that was
Awesome.
honest, transparent, and still himself. He wasn't bougie like other black people when they make it. What that do?
Hmm. Yeah. And I hear a theme for you is really being true to yourself, not putting on airs, that success doesn't have to include conforming with someone else's idea of what success has to sound like, dress like. What about an experience that either signifies or in some way highlights your experience as a Black man in the United States?
Mhm. In a negative way or a positive way?
And I leave it to the guest.
I'll tell you a powerful one, and one that
Please.
probably will bother you a lot.
Okay.
When I was 23 years old, I was in undergrad. I went to New York City College of Technology and CUNY School. I was studying pre-law. At the time, I was going to school from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. at night, and I would work from 9 p.m. to 6:30 in the morning for
Oh,
3.5 years until I graduated from college. One
oh,
day I was driving from school to go to work, as I usually do, and I had my school books in the passenger seat of my first car. At the time, I was 23 with a $30,000 car, but I was working full time and I was going to school full time, so I was paying my own car note and everything. And so the cops pulled me over and it was like, "Whose car is this?" It was like, "Oh, is this your mother's car? Is this your girlfriend's car? Is this your father's car?" And I was like, "Whoa, why can't it be my car?" And then they saw the law books in the front seat, and it was like, "Oh, you study law, or these are your girlfriend's books or your sister's books?" And it was like, "Listen,
wow.
you think law? I'm the law. I'm the law. Get out your car." And I was like, "No, I'm not getting out the car," because it was three white police officers, and it was just me, and we was by a park. And so the person in charge, I guess the sergeant, he told the other one, open his car door and pull him out. And they hesitated, and then he was like, "Do it now." And then they did it, and then they pushed me against the car. They searched the vehicle, and then they were just like, "Oh," and then they gave me a ticket, and it was like, "Get out of here." And I was shooken up because it was almost like they were trying to embarrass me, like trying to get me to do something. And so after that, I went to work and I was just telling people at work about it. And it was like, "Yo, you like one of the few that does a lot." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." So I filed a complaint with the Citizens Complaint Board. And it took about a year and a half for me to even sit in front of an arbitrator with them, a mediator with them. And then they lied. They claimed that they were scared for their lives. The car was black and I was a black guy and they didn't know what was going on. And they were just trying to figure out what's going on because they were scared. I'm like, how could y'all be scared? There's three of you with guns. I was a college student. Like, I wasn't involved in any of that. And you guys pulled me over and you guys probably, like, it felt like you guys were saying that I wasn't good enough to have this car and I wasn't smart enough to study law. Like, that's how it came off of. And we had this old white lady who was the mediator, and she was just like, "Yeah, I understand." And they were trying to play onto her sympathies about, "Oh, I was the black guy in the black car that scared them." And then she was like, "Yo, if you want, you can sue them or take the necessary steps and whatnot." And even dealing with that, like I've dealt with a lot of discrimination in America, being a black man, being a dark-skinned black man, and even having some size on me, not being frail or skinny, was intimidated to a lot of white people. And so even when you are smart and you get into these rooms, because I went to a school that's majority white, it cost me almost 100,000 to graduate from that school. And
Mhm.
so it's not a school for poor people. And you know, even when I go to the events for that school, I feel the racial tension. Like in my job, I'm like the only black male director. I feel the
Mhm.
tension in the job. I feel Like when I walk in rooms most of the time, since I'm executive director of a nonprofit, they're expecting a white person. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
Rahbin
Mm-hmm.
is where they look at the resume, and me and a white guy walk in a room together and they look at the resume and they'll look at the white guy and they're like, oh, you must be Rickard Jean-Noel. Impressive resume. I've dealt with all of those things. I've dealt with blatant racism to underhanded racism. I feel like by now it's just a part of life, more or less. And to be honest with ourselves, majority of the top restaurants, top venues, top places, top schools, they're owned by white people. They're not really owned by us. So when you in a certain social circle, you're gonna be around them and you're gonna be the token black guy. And I've been the token black guy a lot. Like I'm usually the youngest and only black guy in the room. And if there is an older black male in the room, they'll act, I don't want to talk to this guy. Like I'd rather talk to a white person try to get put on. Is more so like the black women that'll be nice to you. But the black men, it's just very hard to find black male mentors too.
Mm.
Those are things that I've dealt with a lot in life.
Yeah. All the different ways that those officers tried to say, as a black man, you can't have achieved this. You can't be living that life. Just the fact that they asked you if it was your sisters or your girlfriend, in my mind, that is more than likely a habitual thing that they do with the intention of having it be an underhanded insult as a way to get under someone's skin. I wish I had a different word than that, but I don't. It's irritating. It's what it is more than anything. But thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Now you said you had one. You said that was terrible for me. That one was the one that was terrible. Did you have another one?
There's been times when I've actually been in jail. Like I've been arrested before. Like I remember one time, me and my sister was arguing in the house, and she kept opening the door and closing it, and yelling at me, and cursing, opening the door, closing it, yelling at me, cursing. Like she would insult me and throw things, then close the door. Insult me, throw things, close the door. So at one point I got upset, and I kicked the door. And when I kicked the door, came off the hinges. She wanted to be spiteful and call police, even though it was my parents that owned the home, and I would end up fixing the door anyways. But she ended up calling the police, and when the police came, they tried to charge me with felony charges for kicking a door in my own house. We hear the stories all the time about black men being in jail for small things that's there for a long time over ridiculousness. I could have got a felony over a year in jail for kicking a door in my own house that I was gonna pay to fix the next day anyways. So those are the things that we deal with as black men. Even at work, there was this girl, half Asian, half white, but more towards the white side. And one time there was a group of workers congregating around water cooler talk, they call it. So I tapped the one girl on her shoulder, regular tap, and I told her, please go back to your cubicle, return back to work. And the white girl, I guess we call them Karens, she's like, oh my
Mhm.
God, did that make you uncomfortable? Because it made me uncomfortable. Like when you suffered from secondhand uncomfortableness. I don't understand. The girls, what are you talking about? And she was like, did he touched you? Did that make you uncomfortable? The girls, no, he just tapped me on my shoulder because my back was turned. She was like, oh, if it was me, I would report him. She was like, what are you talking about? And the girl came to me and told me, she was like, watch out for that girl. She looks like she's trying to set you up. Like she probably wants your job or something. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she was like, she told me to report you for tapping me on the shoulder. And she was like, what if I was a bad person? I could have set you up with her. And I was like, yeah, those are things that the black man deals with all the time. And
I'm
different,
saying,
whether in the
right.
street, at home, or at work. Like go through examples.
Yeah. Given that you shared a couple in your answer to that question, I'll still ask you the next question. If there's another that you want to share, I'm here for it. Is there anything from your experiences with law enforcement, anything additional you'd like to share?
Yeah, majority of the time when I had interactions with law enforcement, they more so were trying to antagonize me to do certain things. And it took a while for me to understand that the only person I'm in control of is myself. So sometimes it's best not to say nothing to them. Nowadays, I could say I don't really interact with them at all. It has affected me. I would say after college, I was recruited for numerous law enforcement jobs, from Border Patrol to Army Reserve to FBI police. And I declined
Mm.
all of them because based on their history with my people and then based on my history with them, I didn't want any parts. Like, why would I at least sign up to be part of my oppressor's army? My consciousness supersedes that, especially my ability to research up all these people and the things that they've done meticulously and socially to destroy us. I stay away from that. The best thing you can do as a Black man is stay away from them. I know sometimes we might need them for certain things, because even sometimes when we take the law into our own hands, people could take the law against us at the same time, which has happened to me as well. So it's very fickle, and I would say it's always good to have lawyers on retainer. Like I have a couple lawyer. No, seriously, I have a couple of
Wow.
phone now, at least five.
Wow.
And that's the only thing that separated me from a lot of my friends growing up was my ability to afford lawyers, and that was it. Like I had a friend that stayed,
Really?
yeah, I had a friend that stayed in jail for 3.5 years of his life only because his mother wasn't able to afford bail, and he had a public defender, and he just sat there for the whole time because the way the bail system works, I think at the time his bail was like 150,000, 200,000. You have to put, I think, what,
Right.
then up or the 5% of
Right.
rent and then finance the rest.
Right.
And his mom was a home health aide. She didn't make enough to afford it, so he just sat for 3.5 years. So
And just to be clear, this is waiting for the case to go to trial or whatever, because he wasn't
yeah,
willing. My
yeah,
guess is he wasn't willing to take a plea.
yeah,
And because if he'd taken a plea and admitted to something he hadn't done, then he would have gotten whatever sentence or been put on probation. But by standing up for his innocence, and that's the part that I think, see, about to, my soapbox just showed up. Here it is. By standing up for his innocence.
he was facing 25.5 years. So he did 3.5 and ended up copping out to a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor is a year or less in jail. So he did 3.5 years just to cop out to less than a year in jail, and they gave him time served and released him.
Right now, just because of the economy, whatever, I'm watching a lot of shows on real estate, and not shows, but just the news on everything from inflation, the market, to real estate. And so I happened to catch this one dude, and he's talking about I can't remember if it was San Francisco or some other city. And he was saying that one of the problems is that the criminals who are making the downtown area, who are committing different kinds of crimes that make the downtown area less livable, less desirable, and lowering the property values, is that nowadays, because in California, we did change our bail system. And so there's certain minor offenses where you no longer need to post a bail. And so the person speaking on real estate was saying that this was a problem, and that basically this has led to people being able to just keep doing crimes over and over again without being held accountable. We have this guy thinking he's smart as an American, and he doesn't understand that bail is not something that gets you out of jail after being found guilty. It's just so that you don't have to spend time in jail while you wait for your trial. And so when you tell me that story about someone spending 3.5 years only to agree to a misdemeanor and has now spent 300% of the time he needed to in jail, that just bothers me. Just really gets my goat on that. But back to you, just a number. Like, how many times have you had to utilize an attorney to enforce your rights?
Paid lawyers, I think twice.
Wow.
Twice. I think how many times I got arrested? Maybe 3 times total. Ironically enough, this year I got a citation from the district attorney, the same district attorney that pressed charges against me 2 years ago, gave me an award this year.
And that's something. I think about earlier when you were sharing what it was like during COVID to separate and then have a divorce, to take on raising a daughter on your own while graduating, while elevating your career, and then to also have to deal with this kind of nonsense on a regular, even if it's just irregular, but just that it's there, the weight that we all know the possibility of it, and it's always there.
Mhm.
Yeah. By the way, your daughter is, in my opinion, she's beautifully well behaved. She'll come in, get a little love, and then like, okay, I'm good for now. I'll go away for a little bit.
Yeah, she's a
Uh,
very smart kid. She thought it's cool.
yeah, I see that. So my favorite question, if the United States was a woman, what would you say to her, Rick? Mm-hmm.
I'll tell her, why you taking up all my money and not showing me no love?
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by taking all your money, I'm assuming you mean like taxes and this and that.
Yeah.
And yet,
Prices of inflation, everything.
mhm.
It's almost, I remember there was a song where it says, I'm a citizen of a country that doesn't love me. And that's how I feel. Like in America, we're a citizen of this country, but we're oftentimes treated as second class citizens. I'm telling you, it wasn't until I reached a certain level of affluence and I was around rich people, like affluent people, academia, higher education, those type of people, business owners, and I see they give you that look like, huh? Who's this? There's two looks, huh? Who's this nigga? How did you get in the room? Let me find out more about you. So they'll come up to you and this is their line. So what do you do? But you're like, what brings you here? Let them know in here. And then they'll, a lot of, this happens to me a lot, especially at the country clubs and certain galas. They'll pull out their list. Oh, we don't see you on the list. Are you sure you're on the list? And then I'll take out my phone and I'll show the confirmation on my phone. Yeah, look. They're like, oh, okay, okay. And they'll be like, oh, who do you know here? And I'm like, I know the owner. You do? And I'm like, wait, hold on, I'll call him. He's like, oh, sorry, I didn't know it was you. That's the underhanded racism.
Oh man, look, I'm gonna jump in right myself right here. So I mentioned earlier that I walk half marathon. Many of my longtime listeners know this. I just did one in Kauai, and we stayed at a really nice resort, which was awesome. So two things. First of all, I just love how you talked about those looks, right? Because and here's the beautiful thing: for the most part, those don't happen, which is great. It's not like it's the norm. However, there were always certain people who, and truthfully, there were probably this resort had, I ended up talking to one of the waiters about it, and they have 600 rooms, right? 600 rooms. I probably saw four other Black people during a week stay, okay, and the whole time. And exactly what you said that looked like, oh, how you, what here? Do you know where you're at? Where you meant to be? And what really gets me about that, like you're talking about the country clubs, stuff like that. So I stay in a lot of hotels for the half marathon, and even just for leisurely travel. And first thing they do is they give me a nasty ass room. And by nasty, a room that like, so we get to the resort. The room we got was bottom floor, end of the resort, next to the employee parking lot.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, that's not what you need to go back and look at my reservation and the notes and check that out. So they move us and we get the room that I was expecting, which was a very nice room, view to the ocean. But I cannot tell you how often I check in and they see me and then they go, she won't know any better. And just try to get away with giving the crap. And well, not crap, but still a nice room and all that, but just less than they would for the average person coming in. And it's annoying. You use the word of experiencing being a second class citizen, and it's so pervasive. I think a lot of us don't even notice really. Like we experience it, it happens, but then we just let it wash off our backs because it's so common that you walk into a restaurant, you walk wherever you are that they're not expecting you to be.
I've dealt with it. Like when I first moved to Canarsie, I had white people that lived on my block. And then we experienced something that they call white flight, when white people get up and they move away once they see too much Black people moving into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And even now, even the algorithms are racist. You ever notice how you be on a dating app, or if you on an app and they'll never refer to white people to be friends? Like you ever
Yeah.
notice that on Facebook, Instagram, on dating
Yeah.
they'll never say, maybe you know this person, or maybe you will be interested in this person. If they're white, they
Yeah.
barely even do it. And if it is some white people, it's like country ghetto white people with all those green looking tattoos that look like they live in some country part. Like they show you those type of white people, but they don't ever show you like the decent white people. Like, hey, would you like to date this girl? Of course not. Like they don't. So it's all by design.
That's true. Moving away from that, because you did bring up dating and it doesn't have to be around romantic love. But my next question is about love. And it really is a question not about a general notions or ideas about it or beliefs about it, but rather actual moments. What is a moment that in some way exemplifies for you what love is?
I would say my mother, she showed me love a lot of times. Like a lot of times when I would go through difficulties without me even having to say it, like sometimes she would just help out, reach out.
Give us an example.
I would say when I was going through my divorce, like my mom wrote me a check. Like she didn't have to, but she was just like, I don't want you being upset. I don't want you going through any hardship. I don't want you having to do anything that you don't have to do. Just hold on to this. You might not need it, but just put it away in the bank in case you do need it, so you don't have to worry about nothing while this is going on. And you just to have that support because to be honest, I didn't receive a lot of support, especially not from the people I thought I was going to receive support from. Not really from the church, not really from my friends. It was mostly something that I had to go through alone. I'll say my family provided the most support during that time. But my family, I went through it alone. That's a lot. They said love is wanting more for someone than they want for themselves. And I feel like that was a big step. Like even me when I got married, I feel like that was the most I've ever sacrificed for someone. Getting married with them, having a child with them. I used to be scared to have children in case it didn't work out. And I had children with someone and it didn't work out. I waited 30 years just to deal with that. But it's part of life. In order to really understand love, you gotta know what it is to have it and what it is to lose it. So
Yeah,
I'm learning.
gotcha. My final question, if you could spend 5 hours with any Black man, living or deceased, who would you choose? And either what would you do or what would you talk about?
Any black man living or deceased. I would say Martin only because of the amount of people that he was able to control and have follow him. The reason why I would say that is because that was the last like real civil rights movement that we are aware of, at least one that's tangible that we can see where you were able to galvanize and unify the people in order to push for change. And when he made the speech, The Mountaintop, when he said, I might not get there with you, he understood the bigger message. And to know that you're sitting upon a suicide mission almost and still be able to do it, I feel like that takes a lot of courage. That's almost like when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane praying. They said that he was under so much pressure that he started to sweat blood. And he said, if it be thy will, Father, take this bitter cup away from me. But if it's not your will to take it away, give me the strength to move forward so that your will shall be done. I feel like that was something that stuck with me a lot, where I kept asking God to take this bitter cup away from me when I was going through my struggles and hardships. I'll ask God to take it away. Some people, yeah, they might take the easy way out. They might blow their brains out. They might take a couple pills or do something like that. They live through it and to make it through it and still going through it every day. That takes a different level of courage that not everybody has. Even and we've seen that in life, unfortunately. And seeing what Martin went through sitting in the jail cell, having outside forces to tamper with his life and his marriage, dealing with the uncertainties, and even going through all of those hardships while leading all of these people. No one knows what this man went through, and then ultimately dying, and then your best friend not even catching your body when you got shot and then dying so publicly. So it's a lot dealing with that. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, right?
Yeah. And yeah, we haven't had another leader who's been allowed to rise to that level of prominence and be effective. And there's just so much that can get in the way and so much that gets put in the way. Yeah, I can appreciate that choice of Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah, I don't want this to be a statement of truth, but I look at Black Lives Matter in that moment, and there have been real results that were produced. There have been real changes in criminal policy. There have been changes in social situations. The schools have started to grapple with equitable teaching and blah, blah, blah. In some cases for better, in some cases for worse, as we know. And so there have been results from that moment, but you're hard pressed to find a single leader. And I don't know if that is a reflection of maybe it doesn't mean anything, because when I look at it, aside from the structure of electing a president, is there any real leader for any other group? Is there a leader for white Americans? I think it's just been dispersed. We just don't have a national culture anymore that really allowed for that. And I don't think anyone knew at that time that Martin Luther King Jr. would probably be the last national Black hero. Not well. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna scratch everything I said because that I just acted like Obama didn't get elected. But aside from that,
Mandela came after Martin Luther King.
yeah, Mandela did. But I'm specifically speaking in the United States. I can't think of anyone.
Yeah, but I don't think Obama led any social change.
Yes, that is arguable. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, yeah, you're right. He's yeah,
Black people besides be half black.
yeah. I guess for
Saying this is-
yeah.
I said he didn't do much besides be half black and invite rappers to the White House.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? And I appreciate what you're saying because in a lot of ways, Obama is more of a symbolic hero in that the symbolism of having a Black man become president of the country. His role was not specific to Black America. And in fairness, as a president, that is not the intention of that role.
But then he also was intentional with providing LGBTQ with rights and laws as well.
Okay. I like a little, okay. Interesting. You know what? You're gonna make me go back and take a look at what changes did he bring in, and were there equivalent changes in the Black community? Thank you for that.
I actually wrote to Obama during his presidency about what he was doing to help the Black man during that time because it was around the time his presidency was around the time when I was stopped by the police at that time by the three white cops, and I wrote to him and I asked him what he was doing, and he referred me to my brother's keeper, which is just like an initiative where one Black man holds himself responsible and accountable for another Black man. But in regards to like him personally within his presidency, he didn't really do much. But then we seen them pass the Asian hate crime bill too, so they were able to pass a African American hate crime bill if they wanted to, but they didn't. They just now
Hmm.
make lynching illegal.
Huh. Was the Asian hate crime bill that was after his presidency though, or was it during his presidency?
I think it was around end of his presidency going into Trump. Because I don't think
Wow.
that's when it was like stop Asian hate. But
Yeah.
that was only because America was making a lot of money with China.
Uh, and here comes the wisdom. So now that we've had this conversation, what did you get for yourself, Rick, out of having this conversation?
I would say I got a moment to reflect whenever I'm able to have these conversations with people. I feel like it's therapeutic. Most people are not open and honest in conversations like how we were today. And it's always therapeutic to just review the different parts of your life, go back to memory lane, see the different parts in your life. And I'm sure you could hear the changes of my voice when I said different parts of my life and share different experiences. They still impact me till today as well.
Yeah.
It's always good to share that with new people, share your experience in your life with them.
Going back to the favorite movie that you shared, Benjamin Button, I love what you got from this because while we don't live our lives backward, it is important to take moments to reflect. And so I encourage anyone who's listening, if you have listened multiple times, I encourage you to, the next time you're listening to an episode, to pause it and answer the questions for yourself. What are the accomplishments that mean the most to you? What have your interactions with law enforcement been? What would you say to the United States if the United States were the woman? It is meant to be that opportunity, Rick. And so thank you for articulating the opportunity of having these kinds of conversations. Before we close up, I always share what stands out about the brother that I'm interviewing. And for me, with you, it is determination through service. One of the things I noticed was that you actually leaned into service as you were going through your hardship, which brings back the title of the sermon you mentioned, Leading While Bleeding. And I love that because it really encapsulates that you stand on service. There are many people that I've interviewed that I can say their life is about service, but there's something about your way of going about it, that determination just loses out. Like, we just get that you are courageous in the face of no agreement. You're just courageous. So thank you for being an example of determination through service. I will have links where you can check out what Rick is up to, what Rickard Jean-Noel is up to in the show notes. But Rick, before we close out, do you want to just give them either a website for our auditory listeners who may not want to bother with show notes and just will remember what you tell them? So where would you like them to go to check you out?
All right, cool. Our official website for our 501c3 nonprofit public charity is www.therealword.org. That's the real word ministries inc.org. Also on YouTube, that's youtube.com/the real word TV. You put the real word TV as one word on YouTube to look it up, and at the Real Word Ministries Inc. on Instagram, at the Real Word Ministries Inc. on Instagram, SoundCloud, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, the Real Word Podcast, the Real Word Podcast. Also catch us on the Brick Network in New York every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m., 1 a.m., and 12 noon. We're on the Brick Network. Catch us every Wednesday on the Bronx Inspired Network as well. Anywhere and everywhere you catch your media, you'll catch us. So thank you for the.
Hey, I love it. You really are like all over the web, all over digital platforms. So that's awesome. Rick, it's just been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and click the bell so that you're notified when new episodes arrive.